Are we on?
Morning, everyone. This is the March 4th meeting of the Dunn County Planning, Resource and Development Committee. All members of the committee are present, so we have a quorum. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the February 18th meeting? Supervisor Kinnear moves. Supervisor Barrier seconds. Any discussion or corrections? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Minutes are approved. Do we have any public comments with regard to the agenda today? Yep. Name and address, you know the drill.
Who are you?
Tony Christopherson. I live at E9920, 630th Avenue, Elk Mound. And as the chairman of Elk Mound, I would like to commend you on adding on the changes for 825, 878, 886, 892, 893, and 894. And I do have a slight concern on 806 concerning removal from the code about access for emergency vehicles. I understand you guys intend to have it, that you're gonna add it. But I have to say, as a member of the fire commission, we would like to, have some certainty in there. It's the only concern I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Question?
Yeah.
So when is a person, if you want to speak? Want to speak?
Gary, Supervisor Burke, please.
Okay. So when does a person, if you want to talk about something that's not on the agenda, because you can't do it at the county board meeting, right? If it's not on the agenda, how can you bring it up?
I may be mistaken, but I think the policy is that it must come through a committee. So you'd have to
Okay,
persuade the chair or members of the committee to help persuade the chair to,
okay.
I believe, to put it into.
Okay, I'm just kind of wondering why.
Yeah, no, there's been discussion about that, Gary, a lot.
Okay,
It's no easy way to accommodate all of the aspects of it, but that's my understanding is that would be the procedure. That's how we've done it in the past. I know you, your committee, that's how you do
Yeah.
it, kind of, right? Yeah. Anything else? Anyone? Is there any other public comment with regard to the agenda today or the comprehensive plan? Okay, thank you. So today we have a public hearing. This is a hearing to review a request for rezoning of general ag to light industrial, Calvin and Katie Nisley. Here's the process we'll follow. We'll invite, we'll open the hearing and then we'll invite staff to provide their report and confirm that the proper notices have been filed. And then we'll hear the staff report and there will be questions from the committee to the staff, and there may be. And then we'll allow the applicant to speak if they wish, and anyone else who wishes to speak either in favor of or in opposition to uh, the request. This will be the only time for a public comment on this request. And after the testimony, we will close the hearing and then most likely move to have the committee discussion and action on the committee moved up in the agenda, possibly, or we may take another action to postpone, for example. So everybody who testifies will be sworn in under oath to be telling the truth. With that, I'll note that all members of the committee are present, and I will call the public hearing to order. Tammy, staff report.
Good morning. In your committee or in your packet that you received is the staff report for this rezoning request for a zoning map amendment. The applicants are Kelvin and Katie Nisley, with the agent being Elmer Borntrager. The site address is N140 690th Street in Duran, Wisconsin. This is in the town of Peru. The parcel is currently zoned general agriculture, and the rezone request is for approximately 8.47 acres. It was noticed in the Colfax Messenger for February 18th and February 25th. Neighboring properties within 300 feet, including those were in Pepin County, were also noticed of the hearing. You'll see, in addition to the staff report today, is an exhibit edition. So prior to this being issued, we did not have a certified survey map submitted. So I did make copies for the committee to share. So this was received last night. And just for the record, that is, Exhibit B, the draft certified survey map. Property location, as shown on the screen, we are right on the county line here between, in the town of Peru, adjacent to the town of Pepin County. You can see the active farm site, and I'll have an additional photos coming up. But it is an active farm operation. There's a schoolhouse on the property to the south. And overall, the surrounding area you can notice is agricultural use. So it's currently 39 acres that we're looking at, that they're requesting to split into that 8.47 acre parcel. The remaining 31 acres would stay as general agriculture and include an existing residential dwelling. And the property has active crop farming, keeping of livestock, a schoolhouse, maple syrup production, and the single-family housing. The business, the proposed principal use would be a metal fabrication business specializing metal roofing and siding. The business is currently located in Pepin County, and future property owner intends to relocate the operations to the site. Related to the use for light industrial, the business would employ approximately 3 employees with operating hours from 7 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. There are several existing structures on the property that would be removed, including one of the residential dwellings. The existing barn will remain on site. A new 60 by 264 square foot, 60 by 200 square, or that's a hard number to say, 264 feet by 60 feet with an attached 40 by 40 office is proposed. New sanitation facilities will be designed and installed by a licensed plumber, and the site being adjacent to State Highway 85, the proposal will have minimum impact on local traffic patterns. Noted on the screen here is just the adjacent property owners that were notified. This is an additional slide with modification showing the Exhibit B that was shared with the committee of the proposed site plan. So again, on the right was what was in the packet of the concept, CSM, and staff find that it's fairly close to what was proposed, the draft CSM that we did receive. We can always come back to this slide, but I don't know if the committee has any questions about the
Any questions on this?
the
Very-
site layout
Very
first of all.
first, and then Monica.
So how many of the farm structures are gonna be tore down? 'Cause they said there'd be some that would be tore down, but some that wouldn't.
Yep, that's fair. If you can notice on the right-hand side here, let me get my handy dandy. I probably should make sure it's on here. So outlined in green here would be the new structure that's being proposed. So several of these structures right in this area will be removed. The agent and future property owner is here, and you can we can ask for further clarification on the additional structures as needed. I will move on the report. I just didn't know if the,
I was just curious, so on the concept plan, on the south, east corner, there's like a broken line, and then on the actual CSM, it's a straight line, just wondering what happened there. Yeah, that line.
the applicant can, so we received it last night. So we, unfortunately, we haven't had a chance to talk, the exact details of why that changed. Ultimately, I don't think it really changes, just squaring off the area versus having any jigs. So this is, I guess, from a preference standpoint, this is, a straight line so much easier to, maintain on the landscape than any kind of jog. So,
I was just curious.
no, that's a good question.
Any other questions?
I'll just continue with a few more details on the staff report. Here outlines the different comprehensive plans that are involved related to this request. So on the left-hand side is the Dunn County Comprehensive Plan. This is the future land use map that identifies this area's preferred land use as farmland. The Town of Peru Comprehensive Plan identifies this area as important agriculture. Interestingly enough, the town of Lima, which is in Pepin County, actually identifies a corridor along Highway 85 as mixed commercial residential and a commercial zone. Analysis of the agricultural use as outlined on this slide, a large portion does not contain prime farmland. There's a small portion of farmland of statewide importance and prime farmland. Outlined is just the classification of the soils related to that. Current conditions, here's some photos of the property. Again, and it does look like it's hard to see, but on your screens, you'll notice the existing barn over here. And included on this side would be several of those structures that would be removed. Based on our comprehensive plan criteria in chapter 13 of the Dunn County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, we look at consistency with the plan. And the property has historically been used for agriculture purposes and currently supports agriculture-related business ventures, including the maple syrup production. The proposed rezoning would allow continued agricultural use on associated parcels while accommodating a small-scale light industrial operation that is rural in nature and limited in intensity. The Town of Peru Comprehensive Plan does identify the need for economic health and carefully situated, small, non-polluting, environmentally safe light industrial and or businesses are appropriate based on, again, based on the trade, signage, lighting, and traffic related to that use. Given the surrounding land consists primarily of agricultural, active farming operations, pasture, cropland, forestry, and low-density residential uses, properties to the south in Pepin County are similar rural residential uses or agriculture. Again, the town of Peru reviewed this request and had no objections to the rezoning. The existing agricultural district has a wide range, and with metal fabrication not being allowed in our agricultural zoning district, a light industrial operation or light industrial zoning would be suitable for this operation.
Tammy, could you go back to the slide of land characteristics and suitability? Yeah, that one. So, I mean, the town has no objection, and I understand that, but I am curious about, and this is a big jump. So I'm curious about where are the areas that are marked of prime farmland and farmland of statewide importance. It's not clear to me from this.
No, that's fair. So try to have it color coordinated with the green and the green here, the farmland of statewide importance, and actually the orange. So the green being the farmland of statewide importance, which ironically is also area of some slopes.
Interesting.
And the area identified for prime farmland is where the existing structures are located here.
Okay, interesting. I couldn't, my old eyes could not
No, that's fair.
translate that on the slide. Thank you.
Mhm. Outlined on this slide is the land use pattern. So rezoning agricultural land to non-agricultural district can in some cases contribute to land use fragmentation. In this case, the light industrial district would be limited to a defined portion on the property, which is anticipated to be created as a separate lot. The remaining acreage would retain its agricultural zoning and continue to be used for crop production and related agricultural operations. We look at the impact on use, enjoyment, and economic value of nearby properties. So given the rural setting of the property and its proximity to State Highway 85, adverse impacts on the use, enjoyment, or economic value of neighboring properties were not identified. Surrounding parcels are predominantly the agricultural, rural, residential use, and those adjacent lands can continue without interruption. The proposed light industrial use is limited in scale with indoor operations and a small number of employees, reducing the likelihood of nuisance impacts. Traffic impacts are not expected to be significant, as State Highway 85 is designed to accommodate regular truck traffic. Access improvements will be required as part of the project, but that would be on the town road and not on the state highway. So the town of Peru has expressed willingness to work with the applicant for access improvements on that 690th Street. So as far as environmental impacts go, later on the staff report, we identify conditions of approval. So the applicant would be required to have a new septic system installed. They would like to continue using the existing well. Any land disturbance that is greater than 1 acre would require DNR 216 stormwater permit. So all those would be addressed as part of the operation. Since this is just a metal fabrication, it's considered a dry manufacturing, so water use is not a concern. Since everything is happening inside primarily the coils and, the, yeah, I guess the fabrication of the metal, the truck traffic and noise would be, and lighting would be the most impact. The rest of the activities occurring indoors would not be creating an additional noise or concerns. And just kind of summarized on here, but ultimately the adverse impacts on public health, safety, and welfare were not identified. In addition to county zoning and sanitation review, any commercial structures would be regulated by the state of Wisconsin. And its historic significance, staff were not aware of any historic, features that are on or near the property that would be adversely impacted by the rezone. Staff would recommend approval on the proposed rezone to light industrial for the approximate 8.47 acre portion of the property. This, request is modest in scale, according and economic development goals of and spurring those rural opportunities identified in both the county and town comprehensive plan. Recommendations for if conditions of approval would be the approval of the certified survey map, driveway access improvements coordinated with the town of Peru, obtain all applicable permits from the state of Wisconsin for commercial structures. They would need to coordinate with the town of Peru regarding the removal of the existing buildings, the DNR stormwater permit for 1 acre or more disturbance. A Dunn County land use permit would be required and the Dunn County sanitation permit. And just outlined here is, the options for the committee to take action today.
Okay. Any questions? Carrie?
The present driveway, would that be tore out then? Because they wanna come in on that side road, so would that driveway still be on there?
So this is the driveway you're referring to, and this would remain. This would be actually where they would do further improvements on this portion of the driveway.
So it doesn't come right out on 85 then, huh?
Correct.
Okay.
There's no direct set. Yep. So 85 is right here. Town Road is right here. So they would just maintain improvements here with the existing driveway.
Any other questions? Mike?
Were there any comments from the neighbors? I know they all got sent something.
We did not receive any public comments.
And then just a comment. We've been working on our comprehensive plan, and this is such a good example of how vague they can be. You could make a case with looking at the future land use plans not to do this. I think this is okay, but you could easily go either way. And also, is it Pepin County that's
Mhm.
next? Do we look at, maybe this is a little bit out of the way, but we should be looking at our contiguous counties. Is here we have business right across the line and general ag right next to it. So as we do ours, I know we're looking at that. So nice job going through this.
Anyone else? So Tammy, we received Exhibit B late, so it's not entered until, there's no opportunity for be entered in. Do you feel like that exhibit changes in any fundamental way the application and your recommendation of it?
I do not. I feel like it's fairly consistent with their petition request that the committee received and is included in the staff report. So this is the supporting documentation that would be required before an ordinance could be drafted and moved on to county board. But yeah, I think it's very close to what they put in their original request.
Any other questions?
And their original request is what was sent to the neighbors.
Correct.
Okay, thank
Yep,
you.
and the committee, like, in the staff report and everything. Yep.
Okay. If there's no other questions of staff, then Mr. Nisler or your agent, would you care to speak, or you don't have to, but if you want to, you have to go up there. You don't have to if you don't want to. You're fine? Okay. I see is your agent here? No. Okay. All right. Anyone else wishing to speak on this topic? Are there any further questions by the committee? Then I would close the public hearing. And without objection, I would ask the committee to move approval, a discussion and action on the item, I forget what number that is in the agenda. 9A, up to this point, if that's okay. Any objection to that?
No.
All right, so we are discussing the request for rezone. Any comments, any questions, So we have three options: deny the request, postpone the public hearing. So we could say, look, we need, the application wasn't complete because the exhibit wasn't provided to us, and we could postpone action until our next meeting. Or we could approve the suggested motion to approve. I'll just read that, and if any of you care to make it, we could make it that, and then we could discuss it. Approval with recommended conditions, the zoning petition for parcel identified in our presentation based on the concept map and draft description submitted. This approval is conditioned upon final approval of a certified survey map and legal description. Staff is directed to prepare the formal ordinance and legal description for county board consideration once the CMS is finalized. So that would be a draft of a possible motion to conditionally approve. Anyone care to make that motion?
Conditionally approved?
Well, the conditions are based on the conditions.
Based on the conditions. Got it. Thank you.
And the recommended conditions.
I'll move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? Monica seconds. Okay. Are we clear about the motion?
Mm-hmm.
Is there further discussion of the motion? Any questions? Okay, then I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion that presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The motion to rezone with conditions is accepted and passed. Thank you for coming. Mr. Carlson, you're on.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, the other committee members. Let me get down here to right portion in the packet. So why are we here this morning? We're here to review amendments to Chapter 16 of the County Land Division Ordinance. Recent changes to state law have necessitated us making some changes to our local ordinance.
Jim.
So in December, Act 68 was passed, and as part of that act, there are some changes to sections of Chapter 236 of state statute, which regulates land divisions. And then being we have a land division ordinance, we need to be consistent with that. So those changes take effect on the first day of the 7th month after publication, which would be July 1st. So it seems like we have quite a bit of time, but in reality, we don't. We need to discuss this as a committee, agree on these changes, hold a public hearing, which is required under Chapter 236.45, requires a Class 2 notice. And then we need a first reading and a second reading at county board, which will be a new county board after the spring election. So working all this backwards, that gives us the month of March. this meeting and perhaps the next if needed to review these amendments, hold a public hearing at one of our meetings in April, first reading at county board in May, second reading in June. So we're right on track. I feel. So having said that, there are changes that are needed and required prior to July 1st. But as long as we're opening this ordinance up for amendments, there's a few other things that we would like to put in here as well. So the way, I guess I have this in my mind today, and after speaking with Corp Counsel, is we're going to go through the items that we have no choice on. Let's deal with those first, and then I believe we'll have enough time to dig into the rest of those as time permits. I know there's other items on the agenda, so I just want to be respectful of our time today as well. So, that is my plan. If you have any questions, certainly feel free to interrupt, or ask. So you all have had this now for a week or so. I'm hoping you've had a chance to kind of go through it and have formulated some of your own questions. I will certainly address Mr. Christopherson's question on line 806 when we get there. So I guess let's just jump right into this. I'm gonna, again, deal first off with the green highlighted and underscored or underlined items. Those are the ones that, again, are being driven by this Act 68. So just bear with me here. So we're going to start out with our purpose statements. And a lot of this, I don't know that we need a discussion on. If there's questions, we can certainly stop and go through them. But I don't intend to read all of these. They're just some additions that we've made based on the recent statutory changes. Does anybody have questions on this page?
And I apologize, I didn't think about the memo I just handed to you this morning. This is the memo that I received from Tom that kind of details, and in the memo, there's 6 questions. And whether you want to write this down or not. Basically, in the memo, question 1, I covered with any changes I made to 1603. Question 2, or I guess comment 2, I covered in any changes I made in 16.30. Question 3, I covered in 16.32. Number 4, excuse me, I covered in 16.36, as well as question 5, 16.36. And question 6, it was in 16.34. And some of those I didn't make any changes to because our current ordinance is satisfactory under. The only other changes I made that are not the law was I changed the way we referred to Wisconsin statutes just to modernize that.
Yeah.
But I really tried to keep this compact. I didn't put in any of my opinion as to a better way to do it. I just wanted to make sure we're statutorily compliant with the new law that takes effect in July.
Thank you for that, Jim. So these are purpose statements that in some cases we just tweak them slightly. In other cases, we've added new provisions in here. So they spill over onto the next page. So that is the first section that was
Any
affected.
questions on this first section from anyone? Okay.
Okay. And then we need to go a ways before we run into some more statutory changes here. Before I go any further, I just want to mention, it was more than myself that went through this. Of course, Corp Counsel's office, Tammy, and the zoning office provided a lot of assistance on this as well. So it was a group effort. Bear with me, I'm making sure we're not missing anything. Okay, so pre-application consultation. So this is the subchapter regarding plating. So one of the changes is the county has to provide the applicant or agent an opportunity to come in for a preliminary review. Right now, we encourage it.
Right.
We don't require it.
Right.
So I think we certainly are in compliance with that, but this verbiage just drives that point home. Okay. So, and those reviews are certainly not binding on the county or the subdivider. So in my mind, one of the biggest changes with this new language is the review time and approval time for final plats. Preliminary plats haven't changed. We have 90 days, the county, under ordinance and statute to review a preliminary plat. Right now, as it stands, we have 60 days in which to review and approve a final plat. The new changes reduce that time limit down to 10 days. So it would be nearly impossible. I mean, if we got a plat in today, right, we would have 10 days in which to, provided it was deemed complete today. Well, we don't meet again as a committee until 2
Right.
weeks from now. So
Right.
it would just be, the only way that would work is if we got a plat, say a week before a committee meeting, and we would have like 24 hours or so to turn that around, get it in the packet, and it just does not seem possible to involve the committee in the review process or the approval process for final plats. So we have no choice but to take that role over as a department. So the committee would have review and approval authority over that preliminary plat. And if you remember, preliminary plats are very important because if the committee approves that in its form, the final, if submitted in substantially the same form, is entitled to be approved. So, right now, under our ordinance, the committee would still be involved at the preliminary plat level, but the final would be handled by staff.
Yeah.
So that's probably the biggest change.
Any questions?
How would it be determined if the final is substantially the same as the preliminary? Who does that?
That would be on staff.
Lucky you.
Mhm.
Exactly.
So any reference to the committee here, of course, we've had to change to department and change any reference from 60 days down to 10. So, so this is just all basic cleanup, right?
One other question still on page 17 toward
Yep.
the line 527, if the final plat is not submitted within 36 months of the latest required approval of the preliminary plat, the department may refuse to approve the final plat. Now, in this case, I guess I'm not complaining whether it be department or committee, but there would be plenty of time for the committee to determine that. It's just a choice of the committee right now. It seems whether they'd want that. Maybe Corp Counsel has a feeling on that too. Or Tom, what do you think of that?
If the final plat is not submitted within 36, so say the committee, PRD committee, approved a preliminary plat. And if that final needs to come in within 3 years of that, if it doesn't, so say it's 3 years and 1 month. This is saying the department may refuse to approve the final plat. The committee's out of it at that point.
Are they out of it now? I mean, in the old, is,
Well, this is the current, right now, the
Right.
committee may refuse to approve the final plat.
right, and we're taking the committee out and using department because of timelines.
Mhm.
One reason. But there's really no timeline here. It's 3 years. The committee is going to have met many times, would have a chance to look at it. So what does the committee think of this? Do they want to have a say in it? Or do you just give it to staff and say, go with it?
I guess I would look at this as we haven't received a final plat. So, my experience in St. Croix County, we would have, we are oftentimes required construction to occur before we would approve a final plat, right? So now we're hitting the 3-year time frame, and they haven't submitted that final plat because of construction or other causes. So the committee would have an action in this case because nothing's been submitted. It's just staff are going to keep a track of, okay, this project's been sitting there for 3 years. What are we going to do? And so are you questioning whether like in 3 years, if we had a plat or a preliminary plat that's been sitting there for 3 years, would you request that comes back to the committee to decide?
That's the request.
That's kind of the question, we could look at it and say, it's been 3 years and things have changed a great deal. And we don't believe this should be approved. Or things have changed. Boy,
Notice.
we would love to have this, because it's development right where we want it. Let's extend it. It seems more of a committee choice than a staff choice at that point. But
Well, it would depend upon whether to me, it would depend on whether the reasons for the delay were technical, for example, or related to the timeline of the development process. That I think those would be judgments that the staff would be well equipped to make and not us, or not as much us. So your experience, is that what would cause this to happen?
I would say typically construction,
Okay.
but this is interesting because, right, it says may refuse to approve the final plat. So it's almost implying that we've received it sooner or received it within that 3-year time frame, right? So if it's,
yeah, it does assume that we've received it, but what if we haven't? Example, in the town of Menominee, they're doing something down by Irvington, and they had plat and all, and it never went through. And the town of Menominee was in a quandary as to, can they come back in 4 years or 3 years or 2 years and do this? So this is just a little unclear to me, because it, like you said, it's assuming we've got it. And as to Tom's point, yeah, you guys have the knowledge, but it's just like today with the rezone. You share your knowledge with us, and then we made the decision.
And I'll say from my perspective, I did not change that because we have to change it. I did it for consistency within
Right.
that
Sure.
section.
Yeah, no, it makes
So-
sense. that-
So you
Consistent.
could certainly not agree with that change if you wish to.
And that's a committee discussion.
Any
what you
other
guys
committee
think.
members have thoughts on this? Any other staff comments on it?
would it be fair then, like if there were plats, that preliminary plats that were sitting out there, you know, Tom would bring them forward to the committee once they're hitting that 36-month time frame. And then the committee would take action or review those that are
All right.
in that pending status.
That would happen if we retain the committee word in there instead of changing it. That would be the status of it, right? Or do we would we need other?
You might want to have other stuff.
Well, in my mind, if you've already approved the preliminary, how can you 3 years and a month later say, well, we changed our mind now? I mean, this is basically just saying, once it's approved, you have a 3-year period to get it recorded. And if you don't, you're gonna have to start over again.
Oh, it says we may. It doesn't say they have to start over again. And that's kind of the leeway.
It's a question of whether after 3 years, the staff should make that, we should retain the staff position to make that or bring it back to the committee. So the
Well,
committee
and back to Tammy's point, maybe we keep track if that would ever happen. And we come to the committee, we haven't heard from the developer, hey, we've got a XYZ plat, it's approaching 3 years. If they would happen to submit this in the near future, how would you like us to handle this? And then we can take your direction. We're still making the decision, but with your recommendation. I don't know, just a thought.
Well, I know, I'll just throw this out here and then whichever way it goes is fine. I'd like to see the committee put in there and then it change so that it isn't assuming that, change it so we're not assuming we've gotten a final plat late or something that fits it. That would be my suggestion. It seems to me it's our job to kind of keep a pulse on what the county needs and what we want to do. And to work together with staff and their advice, which we almost always follow. But so I'd like to see that change and whatever you guys think.
Okay with that.
But if I may, could I throw out maybe just another suggestion? Not that I'm for or against this, but could we change the wording to if the final plat is not submitted within 36 months of the last required approval of the preliminary plat? A new preliminary plat shall be be required and submitted for approval, or somehow stating that the process needs to start over. That would get these people that are delaying things off dead center. Hey, we're approaching 3 years. If we don't record this, we're gonna need to start over.
That's interesting. I know the reason the one in Menominee really had a problem was because of a pipeline. And as you know, sometimes trains or pipelines or other kinds of things, they're beyond our control. So no, another suggestion, but I don't think it's as good maybe as another different one.
That's fair. We can come back in the next meeting with that change. Or at least give us some more thought and
I see, General Head nodding. Diane, you have a comment?
No,
Okay, I see General Head nodding that is in support of the concerns that are being raised by Supervisor Kinnear. So why don't you guys go back and take a look at it and see if we can come up with language and we'll bring it back to the next meeting.
perfect. We can do that.
Then I don't know how that affects line 532.
I was just looking at that thinking we need to deal with this then too, right? Yes, I think it would apply there as well. We'll definitely look at it.
And 537.
Well,
One thing leads to another, doesn't it?
yeah, 537 though. I mean,
I think that's clear as it is, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. Okay.
Oh, okay, I got it. Never mind.
Okay, let's go forward.
Okay, section 16.32 preliminary plats, an opening paragraph was added here. And this is again driven by these changes. Any questions on that? It's saying preliminary plans, reports on sewer, water, and road cross sections, grading and stormwater, all those things. We can accept preliminary. If they want to give us final, that's great, but we can't require final plans. So we don't really have much choice here in this matter.
Okay.
Okay. So again, if department staff are going to be approving that final, the pre-designed approval certificate will need to be for department staff rather than the chair of the committee. Okay. Recording of the final plat. So again, any reference to the committee, we're modifying to department. And then here is that statement on here about 10 days.
So the final plat would be signed by the department head rather than having had the chair of the committee to it.
Correct. Just similar to how we do
Makes sense.
certified survey maps now. Okay, I'm gonna move on if there's no questions. So again, these are changes driven by Act 68. Talks about financial security not exceeding 120% of the estimated costs. And we can require public improvements that are reasonably necessary and be completed within a reasonable time.
Could you stop for a second? I'm trying to find out where it was, but I was very confused in one part where it seemed to say that we could require certain things being done, roads and so forth. And then another spot saying we couldn't. I mean, almost one right after the other in the same paragraph. And I've been looking for it. They may not require improvements to be installed or accepted as a condition of submitting reviewing. But somewhere it says, yeah, line 638. I'm just confused by it. I'm not questioning whether it needs to be there. It just says as a condition of approval, Dunn County may require the subdivider to agree to install public improvements that are reasonably necessary. Then down below, right there, the county may not require public improvements to be installed or accepted as a condition of submitting, reviewing, or approving or recording a preliminary or final plat. I don't understand that. It seems to say we can require something, but we can't. Could you just explain it to me, please? And I know it's green, so it has to be, but I'm just curious as to.
But I interpreted that to mean if there were improvements that were required, but they hadn't been totally completed yet. Yeah,
Yeah, that's my reading as well. We can require them to do a public improvements, but we cannot require it to be done before the next step happens.
that was what I read it too.
Could, yeah.
Yep.
Could someone please explain the financial security elements of this?
I guess we've never done that. It
No,
might
I
tenure
know.
here, but the way I understand it, yeah, the money would go in some type of an escrow account, if you will, and then if those improvements aren't made to our satisfaction or in a reasonable amount of time, then we would cause to have those improvements completed and use that money to pay for it.
Hey, that's interesting.
What's your question, Diane? Repeat it, please.
No, I don't understand that because we've never done that. And it could conceivably amount to a fair amount of money. How does that work?
It is unfortunate the way the state has now put this in the statute this way. I was a fan of how preliminary plat approval was granted for a plat. We held 50% of the financial improvements, right? We don't want the developer to go bankrupt with having all that
Right.
money locked up. But in exchange, they installed everything. Once they were installed, they submitted record drawings showing substantial completion, and they got to record their final plat, start selling. And the leverage was at 50% because we still held up final plat approval. Here, if we're holding and it says may not exceed 120%.
Oh,
So
right.
I would still encourage, in the event that things, a scenario comes in front of the committee, we consider what that process looks like. And I think, one way to look at this language is maybe negotiating, right? So the committee can now start negotiating as part of a developer's agreement, what you're holding and maybe what those approvals are. And maybe the committee holds less. Another portion of this is that it may not exceed, and my understanding is that like the township could also hold financial assurances, but between the two entities, we cannot hold more than 120%. So it doesn't mean the township can ask for 120% for stormwater and the county asks for 120%. And I think that was what was occurring in some cases across the state, that these,
Okay.
developers were locking so much money up in a security bond and unable to actually complete projects.
Okay, makes more sense.
Okay. We're okay with that? I guess it's the state law, so we have to be here.
We can request
Okay. I think that might have covered most of it, yeah. I guess if we run into some more near the end, we can, so that concludes the portion that we have to make before July. I will just start at the top and we'll go down through the rest of our
Okay. Thanks, Rick.
provisions we're proposing here. So right off the bat, we've had variance requests come before the committee, and there's always been some, I don't know, misunderstandings. There may be some misinterpretation. What type of a variance is it? Traditionally, zoning variances go through the Board of Adjustment. These don't. So we're trying to remove any connotation or reference to variance in here. And we've decided, we settled on the phrase modification of provisions. So we pulled this idea or language from another county. So right now, that's what we're proposing, modification of provisions. So any reference to variance in this ordinance will be adjusted to accommodate for that. So, and we'll get into those provisions a little bit later. So definitions, a new definition, and I think there's maybe 2 or 3 definitions new that we're proposing. The first one would be agricultural related structure. So we need to define that because later on we have a provision that talks about dividing land that has existing agricultural related structures and how in our 115 standards may or may not apply to those. So, and I will leave that discussion until we get a little further down, but it's mainly ag related buildings out in the country. Somebody's trying to carve those out and just making sure everybody's aware that there may be some site limitations with those buildings and housing of animals. Okay. You're going to see a lot of just cleanup language in here, as Jim mentioned, just to be more in line with current nomenclature for Wisconsin statute. Closed depression is another new term that we're Supervisor Kinnear is smiling. So a natural geological formation in the Earth's surface characterized by having no direct overland surface water outlet. Okay?
A natural feature.
Yes. Correct. Can't be man-made. Environmentally sensitive area. So Tammy and I talked about this real recently. We don't regulate those areas under any other code. So we're proposing to remove that. Again, environmentally, all these items fall under environmentally sensitive areas. Any questions on that? Removing that?
You're gonna delete this entire section?
Nope, just line 85.
Okay.
Right now, somebody can get a zoning permit or a sanitary permit
Yep,
within
gotcha.
that area.
Yep,
So,
yep.
why are we regulating that if
Yep.
nowhere else we are? Okay. Streams and lakes, you're gonna see in here, we're trying to get away from streams when possible and just lumping everything into navigable water. It's more all encompassing. And there's less room for interpretation. Was this a stream? Is it the Gilbert Creek? Well, the Gilbert Creek now isn't a stream, right? Because it's a creek. And it's like, no, it's navigable water. Let's just keep it simple. Okay? So again, some of these changes are because of issues we've had in the past, and we're trying to make life easier for staff and for the professionals that we work with too. If we have interpretation issues, then something needs to get fixed. So navigable water here again. Modification of provisions. So this will be a departure of the terms of this ordinance from which the committee may permit pursuant to this chapter. So again, that's our new modified definition for variance. Yes.
So what is navigable like waters? I mean, is there something in there that they gotta have water certain time of year or?
I'm getting to that. It's funny you brought that up because that's our next definition that we're not adding, but we're modifying. So
Okay.
I'll read it here. All natural inland lakes within Wisconsin and all streams, ponds, sloughs, flowages, and other waters within the territorial limits of the state, including the Wisconsin portion of boundary waters, which are determined to be navigable under Wisconsin statute 30.10. So to answer your question, you need to pull up Wisconsin statute 30.10, which is cross-referenced in here. And Tammy can maybe speak a little more to that too. I know sometimes what you and I think may not be navigable water is in fact meeting the definition. So certainly at different times of the year can make a difference as well. So I don't know if Tammy has anything else to add, but
Yeah, Wisconsin DNR has some guidance documents on this, but it's basically being able to float a watercraft of a certain width. And it really states one, at least during one day a year during a runoff event. But in addition, there's, bed and bank and some other you know, indicators that that's an actual navigable water body, but it's a width and a depth and floating some piece of watercraft.
But there's no time limit on like how many days a year that it can be used or,
That's correct, yep. So it's not a, you know, it's 9 months out of the year being able to float a piece of watercraft. It would be during a spring runoff event, could be a qualifying event.
A question. Going back to what you renamed variances to, I don't remember what the language was. But so there's Wisconsin law related to variance requests and how we approve them, I think. So how does that rename like interact with those statutes? Does that question make sense? Mike's with me. That might be more of a corp council question. Or maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know.
Well, all I can say is down in section 16.83 is where we get into the meat of this
Okay.
and all the requirements and what the committee is going to look at. So there's certain standards in there, you know, hardship, loss of profit, financial hardship, those types of things, not modifying a provision that would be in violation of another county ordinance. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah.
I guess we do have some criteria that we are going to be evaluating these requests on. It's not just, hey, we want to create a substandard lot. Let us do it. Okay, do you meet X, Y, and Z of the standards that are needed?
Okay.
So it may or may not align with, you know, the variance requirements, but I think it closely aligns in my mind. We certainly have, you know, benchmarks that need to be met.
Okay.
I don't know if that's answering your question.
Maybe it does. I'll think about it. Thanks.
Okay. Non-conforming structure, we're removing that. It's a zoning issue. We're gonna let the zoning ordinance speak to that. Any questions on that? The reason we had it in here is because we wouldn't allow anybody to create a new lot line if it's gonna result in a non-conforming structure. So you're in a zone town, you got a 5-foot side yard setback, we're not gonna let you run a property line 3 feet from that building. This is saying you can do that, but we will catch it in the zoning ordinance. If you're in an unzoned town, in theory, if the town doesn't have anything in place, you could run a lot line right through the middle of your home if you wanted. And if somebody wants to do that, then who are we to tell them no? So, any questions? It seems like a good thing to do in here, but I know there may be some questions.
Okay.
Okay. Outlot, this might result in some lengthy discussion here. From time to time, we get questions on outlots I want to put a garden, you know, I have a garden shed that's on my property. I want to split that off. And for whatever reason, it's like, well, no structures are allowed on outlots. You can't build on them. You can't put a house on them. And again, we're trying to distinguish between land use and land division and started looking at other counties. And also the frontage requirement on outlots is causing some issues. And I have some examples here that I will mention. Right now, current ordinance requires all lots and outlots to have a minimum of 33 feet of frontage, either on a public highway or an access easement. So we don't end up with landlocked outlots. But there's a lot of reasons why it's just not feasible to create an access easement for an outlaw, and I'll show you a couple examples. So I pulled this language out of Barron County. It just kind of fell on my lap one day, and it seemed to fit really, really well. So they actually have two separate outlaw definitions. One is for outlots being created on certified survey maps. The second one is for outlots being created as part of the platting process. So I'll just read these quick, but an outlot on a CSM is a land division created by CSM, which does not meet lot standards. So that's very important and is intended to describe. So what are lot standards? It's basically minimum lot size. And do you have road frontage somewhere that it's not landlocked? Those are our two two big things, right? And of course, we have a 4-to-1 depth to width and a few other things, but basically, if you meet the minimum lot size and it's not landlocked, it's a lot. Okay, so, outlots would not meet those standards, and they're intended to describe an area of land to be attached to an adjoining lot or parcel of land. Outlots shall not be in separate ownership from that adjoining lot or parcel of land. This does not apply to outlots dedicated to the public, such as streets or parks. And then a note provided by the department shall be placed on the face of all certified survey maps that contain outlots. So here would be an example note. Let me make this a little bigger. And this note could change from time to time depending on the scenario that we have. It's not a rigid note, and that's why we left it very open-ended. Staff are gonna read. So this would be a typical note. Outlot 1 is intended to be conveyed to the owner of lot 1 of CSM number 2520, which is an adjoining lot, right? Any future independent conveyance of that outlot to a non-adjoining landowner shall include an access easement as part of the conveyance. So the fact that you're creating it, it needs to be attached to an adjoining lot or parcel of land. And if you're ever gonna deed it away separate, then if it doesn't have road frontage, it's gonna need some type of an access easement. So those would be outlots on CSMs, and then outlots on plats, are those areas designated for, say, green space or parks, drainage and stormwater retention areas. An outlot on a plat may or may not meet lot standards, and that's what's different about this. If it's on a CSM, if it meets lot standards, you cannot call it a lot. If it's 3 acres, even if it's, odd shaped or whatever, it's not buildable in the sense, you still have to call it a lot because it's got road frontage and it meets the minimum lot size. If you're on a plat, you could have a 17-acre outlot if it's being used for stormwater retention or for green space. So that's the difference. On plats, they certainly might meet lot standards, but you want to restrict them in some reason and designate them as an outlot. And again, a note would be required on there. So the biggest change here is we've removed any reference to structures. And we've separated it on whether it's a plat or a CSM. And the other thing we're not requiring is any type of frontage. You can create a landlocked outlot. And maybe if there's no immediate questions right now, I'd like to just bring up a couple examples and show
Sure.
you
Yep.
why or what precipitated this change. So this is a recent project that just came through our office back in 2024. So Town of Rock Creek owns, if you know where the pickleball courts are in Rock Falls, just south of Rock Falls on H on the east side of the road. They have a baseball diamond, some pickleball courts. Right to the north, their ownership extended into the neighbor's driveway, and a part of the neighbor's septic field was on the town's property. So they hired a surveyor to come in and clean things up, and they created outlot 1 here on the north end. Well, right now, our ordinance as it stands says this outlot needs 33 feet of frontage on a public road. Well, it has frontage, but if you look at line 1, it's only 25 feet. Doesn't meet our ordinance. So now they would have to enlarge this outlot, which would go through the shed. That's right here. See that shed that's right there? And it just, and for what reason, right? I mean, this outlot already has frontage and nobody's gonna build a house on it. It's going to the neighbor. So this new change in the verbiage would allow this to happen. Right now, we had to tailor a note on here, and there's a lengthy note about this outlot, and if they ever sell it, they're gonna need an easement from the neighbor, so it's such that they have 33 feet here between ownership and easement, and it becomes very clunky. So I think our new verbiage certainly would fit this situation a lot better. Here's another one. This is in the town of Elk Mound. Mr. Christopherson probably knows where this is. So a certified survey map was created, and then down the road, somebody wanted to reconfigure it. So the original CSM is represented by these dashed lines that I just had up. And now they want to reconfigure it. And when I show you a photo, it'll make a lot of sense. So that original CSM sits right in here, and it came way out into this nice farm field row crop. So what they did is this parcel that I have highlighted is an outlot. And if we go back to the map, so outlot 1 on this map sits right here. It does not have any road frontage whatsoever. The nearest road is way up here to the north. And if we go back to the photo, so here's a prime example of an outlot right here that doesn't have any frontage on a road. It's intended to go to this adjoining landowner just to clean up that farm field. And it's gonna stay with that owner. And if for some reason, that owner's delinquent on this, well, Jim and April are gonna get this back at Corp Council after 3 years and have to deal with it. But I guess we'll deal with that when it happens. So, and things will happen. And these issues could be created without a certified survey map as well. There's conveyances of land between adjoiners, so somebody could create a small little. The reason an outlaw was created is because we already have a certified survey map here. But if this was just a meets and bounds description and these two neighbors wanted to clean this up, they could do this by deed and not even be required to create an outlot. So I don't want to beat this to death, but these are just some examples of outlaws. And then here's an outlot on a plat. So this is Idella Ridge, which came through this committee. This outlot one, I forget how many acres. It's on here, but it's just really hard to see. This is a large outlot that's basically serving two purposes, green space and stormwater retention. So different outlots created for different purposes. Any question on our definition of outlots?
Questions?
Okay, thank you. And if at any point the committee wants to take a break, you need to, I'm gonna just keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
So I would like to get through this today if possible. This is just some cleanup on line 180. Stream, again, we're removing that definition. Variance, we're getting rid of that. Okay, this is just some verbiage cleanup, getting rid of the word adjoining and replacing it with adjacent just for consistency in the rest of the ordinance. We are striking a reference to line 262 down here. So reconfigurations that include existing non-conforming lots shall not be permitted if any additional non-conformity is created thereby. After meeting, internally staff with Corp Council, we just decided it's somewhat confusing. It's not necessary. We don't need it in here. So. Okay. We're already on page 10, making good progress. Line 334, this was just a typo. I think maybe we meant to reference chapter 15 of county ordinance, which is our floodplain ordinance, but certainly when you look at it, refer to chapter 15 of state statute, it has nothing to do with land divisions, so we need to remove that. We talk about applicable county ordinances. We had zoning in there, but we felt it's certainly necessary to add shoreland and floodplain. And we do not have an erosion and stormwater management ordinance at this time, so we need to remove reference to that. Okay, this is just some cleanup here. Right now we allow on a face of a certified survey map, you can list the address and name of the owner or their agent. Well, it's creating problems when the maps get down to register of deeds for indexing purposes. So I'm the owner, but I have some developer that's hiring a surveyor to provide my property, and now their name gets placed on the CSM. Well, register of deeds isn't going to put my name in the record because it's not. They have to index based on what's on the map, and let's just forget it. No more agent allowed. We need the owner. Every property is owned by somebody. Put the owner's name on there. Okay, so just some cleanup. We've added so we define closed depressions. Here's where they reside now in the ordinance. You need to show them on certified survey maps. Wetlands and closed depressions. We've added drainage ways. Cleaned up streams and lakes to just navigable water. Line 405 was very, well, we did some cleanup on this. So we're talking about right now we require regional floodplain boundaries on this 2-foot freeboard contour, which we aren't regulating to. It was kind of an older standard and I've been questioning why this is in here. We just made an executive decision. Let's just rework this whole thing. You just need to show us all floodplain boundaries, period. Okay, just keep it simple. And then this note, basically this note is shoreland zoning. So if we jump down to 407, so we're not getting rid of the note, but in 407, we're just saying that, based on a determination by staff, if there's shoreland zoning or floodplain zoning applicable to this land division, a note is going to be required, and we're going to provide you that note. And then we have the authority to, or latitude to change that note based on, because every map is different. And to have a note in quotations in the ordinance makes it very difficult. We're telling surveyors, well, tweak the note, it needs to say this, and they're saying, well, no, we have to put the note because it's in parentheses, and this just, it takes the rigidity out of that and allows us more flexibility to tailor a note to each project individually. So we're not getting rid of the note. It's just, it'll be provided by us. And how we see this working is we'll have a whole list of notes. When the ordinance amendments go through, we'll send that out to the surveyors and they can just cut and paste onto their map. It just makes it so much more efficient for both sides of that land division. Okay. Apparent easements. You need to tell us the recording information for that easement. That way staff can look it up. If a sewer system is going in and we know there's a utility line there, we need to know how wide that is to make sure the septic isn't going to interfere with that easement. So having that recording information is just good practice and will save us time in the office. Here's a good example of rigidity, right? We require this block in exact form to be placed on a certified survey map, and we're just going to give them that. We can tweak it as needed. So hopefully that's clear with everyone. So beneficiaries of the easement. So easements, are shown on the CSM, but so many times it'll just say access easement. Well, who's it benefiting? It's for the benefit of Lot 2 or for the benefit of the northwest of Section Town and Range. So just some cleanup language here. Right now I'm asking them or recommending that they add this, but I can't require it. This allows me to say, hey, you need to show this. I can use the word required now, when in the past I couldn't. So again, these changes are not huge, right? But they're just a lot of little cleanup. Being the ordinance is we're amending this now. Let's take care of some of these loose ends. So again, this is a retracement certified survey map. So I own a piece of land that was originally created in 1940 with a meets and bounds description. It's described or a strip description. It's the north 400 feet of the west 800 feet of a 40. And I just want a certified survey map on my property. I want that map to hang on my wall. So I'm going to hire a surveyor. I'm not creating a new parcel, but I'm just better describing it. That's a retracement certified survey map. A note needs to be placed on there just saying I'm not creating a new parcel. Again, the county staff will provide that note. We talked about the green, so I'm just going to skip over that. Number of copies, hard copies. When plats come in, survey, geez, Tom, I got to send you 10 copies. What are you going to do with all? It's like, well, I know, send me 3 or 4. Well, the ordinance says 10. It's like, well, we're going to change that. So, right now I'm dropping it down to 5. It is nice though to have a paper copy, right? Because PDFs, electronic copies aren't to scale, especially on plats. So you try sending that plat that's on 22 by 30 inch paper to a 8.5 by 11 or even ledger size paper. It's really hard. Magnifying glass things are not to scale anymore. And it's nice having at least a few hard copies that are to scale. Now, let's face it, they have to print that final plat out at some point to record it. So they're going to have means to reproduce copies to scale. Give us 5. So. We talked about all the green, so we can skip over that. So this is under the plat section, requirements. So we're no longer going to require that 2-foot freeboard contour. So basically it's you determine where the regional floodplain boundary line is, and then the contour line, which is 2 feet above that. We're not going to require that anymore. So I think we explained that before. Closed depressions, perennial and intermittent streams you're going to have to show. Deed reference for the subject property. So every document that's recorded in the county has a document number. And then for quite a few years, from the beginning up to a certain point, documents were given a volume and a page and a doc number, but then at some point, volume and page dropped off and they just went to doc number. So the common denominator is every document has a document number. Let's just require the document number and not worry about the volume and the page. Okay. This we talked about again. So regional floodplain boundaries need to be shown on final plats, and then a note is going to be needed. So it's identical language to what we just looked at on certified survey maps, just a different document now, final plat. Just some cleanup here. Recording a final plat, we talked about all that. So just like that, we're down on page 22. Just some cleanup here. If you're following a quarter section line or government lot line. Okay, streets, public and private roads and access easements. So right now, no existing or proposed structures are permitted within the right of way of any proposed public or private road or access easement. So we're looking at changing that. Certainly, we don't want buildings in the future or existing to be put or be placed within a public highway. That's not good practice. But private roads and access easements, this committee has granted structures to be placed in those easements. And in some case, it seems it's not ideal, but where's the harm in it? So right now we're looking at changing this, striking private roads and access easements. So what this is saying, no existing or proposed structure shall be permitted within the right of way of any proposed public road. If you have a private road or an access easement, it's going to be allowed. So B says no existing or proposed structures shall be located within the limits of any private road or access easement except for, bear with me here, fences and similar minor structures that do not obstruct access, visibility, or maintenance as determined by the approving authorities. So if there's a fence, right, a cattle fence, hey, that's going to be fine. If you've got a home there, that's going to be a different story, but each one is going to be evaluated on its own merits. So does this make sense? These aren't public thoroughfares. The amount of traffic going down these private roads and access easements are not going to be that much. So, okay. So here is some verbiage on line 764 about waivers, right? And variances. So this is dovetailing in with our change to modification of provisions. So to request a modification, you need to follow the process outlined in 16.83, which we'll get to here shortly. Any questions on that?
So if someone had a private road and at some point in time in the future, they wanted to ask for it to be a public road, they may have to move structures.
They may.
Yeah. Or we configure the easement.
Yeah. Yep. And before, keep in mind, if you're going to turn that into a public road, there would be some type of a dedication. And then there has to be offer and acceptance. So I, as the owner, would offer it up for public dedication. If it's in the town of Elk Mound, the town of Elk Mound board would have to accept it. And they could refuse to accept it if it's not up to their standards or if there are buildings in it. Correct. Okay. So again, we're in this road section and access easements. So under the private roads and access easements, which we're treating separately from public roads, we're requiring 66 feet of right of way. And the committee, I'm sure can remember, we've had several variance requests come in here where people couldn't get that, or it was creating a hardship, or buildings were in the way. They needed to make it narrower. We talked about perhaps, well, we'll get into that. So right of way shall be a minimum of 66 feet, except as provided in section 16.43 sub 3 L below. So we'll just jump down to that. So again, you're gonna need 66 feet, but down here, it says the right of way for private roads and access easements that serve no more than 2 lots shall be a minimum of 33 feet. Further redivision may not be possible unless you meet the 66. So what is this saying? If I'm doing a 1 lot or a 2 lot CSM, I can go down to 33 feet. But now if I take one, so I record that, now I'm gonna say one of those lots was 10 acres, now I wanna divide it again. Hey, that's possible, but now I have to expand the width of that easement because I'm exceeding 2 lots. That's what it's saying. So this is kind of I wouldn't call it a major change, but a substantial change. And I just want to stop here and make sure everybody's understanding the ramifications of this and if we're all on board with this. I guess the biggest thing that's driving it for me is people will come in and they're like, hey, I want to create 1 lot for my son to build a house. He needs an easement, but he's never going to divide that lot. The easement's only 300 feet long and it just seems silly encumbering my property with a 66-foot strip of land when he only needs 12 feet of gravel to get into his buildings. So we're still requiring 33. We're not going to let you do a 10-foot wide easement, but we just feel half of a road, 33 feet would be adequate up to 2 lots. So we do have a lot of requests for those. I wouldn't say a lot, but a fair number where it seems reasonable to have a provision in here allowing for if they want to do 66, that's fine, but if they want to go less, this gives them an option. Any questions on that?
Sure.
So what would happen if you have those like two lots, 33 feet, but then in time, somebody else wants to come in and create 2 more lots? Do you have to go back and get that 33 feet spread out more?
You
when yours
would.
Starts?
Yep, you would.
Okay, that's what I was.
Or you could ask this committee for a modification of provisions, right? But yes, the language would be very clear, only 2 lots. You can only serve up to 2 lots with 33 feet. If you're gonna piggyback 2 more on there such that you have 4 now,
Yep.
then that easement would have to be expanded or be allowed as a modification by the committee.
So it'd come back to the committee then to make that
Correct.
determination.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, just some cleanup here. We're getting close to line 806 here, that I want to address for Mr. Christofferson. So there's some notes on here regarding private roads, and access easements. So we've tried to, again, take these exact notes out and consolidate it into line 800. CSMs are plats containing lots or outlots that are being accessed by proposed private roads, proposed access easements that are not being dedicated, or by proposed access easements that are being conveyed by a separate document shall have a note provided by the department placed on their face. And that note would be similar to what's up on line 795 here, or on line 806. So if you've got a certified survey map and you're creating a private road on there, you're going to need some type of a notation that any conveyance of these lots needs to be accompanied by a description for this private road, and access is by non-exclusive easement, and it's going to talk about all these. So we're not getting, it looks like we're removing the note, but it will be incorporated into the note provided by the department. So does that make sense? And the note for private roads, we feel is very important, right? We need to make sure that it's, they're non-exclusive. Public service vehicles need to get in there, such as fire and police. So, and the biggest part too is the maintenance. This isn't a public road, so the town of Elk Mound and Dunn County are not responsible for maintaining this road, including snow plowing or driving surface. So does that make sense? You're not fronting on a public road. So if you want to do that, that's fine, but we're going to need a note on here so everybody's aware of the access limitations and expectations of the town and the county. Okay.
I wonder if Mr. Christopherson, do you have any comments on this? Or- Tony Machiko. I'm sorry.
The only thought I have is when the current staff wins the lottery and moves on, is that going, if it's in here, I know it's going to happen. Okay. If we change staff, do I know that it's going to happen? That's my, my real only concern. Right now, I know it's going to happen. That's my question going forward.
Any, thank you. Any reaction, or you're concerned that this isn't clearly identified as necessary?
I mean, the verbiage on line 807 to 813, person, I think we could leave that in its current form. It just gets a little clunky because now you get to insert the road name versus if we tailored the note and sent it to that surveyor, we'd have it. I guess it doesn't give me heartburn if we would leave this in.
Well,
Shall contain this note or one provided by the department.
why don't you take us back and rework it and see if we can come up with that? I agree,
Sure.
that would be helpful.
That's why we're here. We're looking for recommendations because we have our own ideas, but we certainly want to get the committee and others' ideas on this too. We want to make this a good document that's going to serve everybody well. So appreciate the comments. Okay, so moving on. Line 867 talks about access. All lots shall front on a public or private road or access easement. Well, later on, we say lots need a minimum of 33. So this is redundant. We don't need to make another statement saying they need to front, because later on, we say that with more certainty.
So just to, I don't disagree with that, but there is something to be said for writing this so that the average person can understand it. And you're saying that which is what this is. This is a clear and direct statement. But you're saying that this is going to be addressed later on. Will it be as obvious to the average person as this is?
I'll show it to you right now. So if we go under lot standards. Just bear with me. It looks so different because it's so zoomed in. I'm gonna just zoom out. It's driving me nuts.
So even the county surveyor can't find it. My goodness.
If I have a paper. To your point. I have the paper right here in my hand and it is so marked up. Lots and outlots. I guess I don't know why I'm not seeing it here, but
Well, again, why don't you,
we're gonna get to that.
Yeah, okay.
Right here it is.
okay,
Line 894. All lots shall have a minimum of 33 feet of frontage directly on a public or private road or access easement. So this says the same
Yeah,
thing as
yeah.
up above. Up
Just
above
put
left out the 33. It just says they have to front on there. Here, we're saying they need 33. We're being more specific of how much frontage you need. I mean, it doesn't give me heartburn to leave it up above,
no, well,
and we certainly can. It just seems a little redundant, but
this is fine for me.
let's just go back to that line 867. Here, we're not saying how much frontage. Later on, we're saying you need a minimum of 33.
Okay.
I'm fine with leaving it in if that's the choice.
No, I think it's fine with me.
Well,
Yeah.
in thinking about it, the top one says access. So if I'm reading down through and I'm looking, what do I need for access? Or there it is, right there on access. And down here, we're talking about lots and outlots. Or,
Yeah, that's true.
and it's kind of like, well, outlot, I don't have an outlot. So I kind of like leaving it in. to tell you
Yeah,
the
I
truth.
guess,
Okay.
I totally
It's
agree.
such a small
Let's
thing.
leave it in. It's a small thing, but it's clear,
yeah, it's,
as not all of the language sometimes is.
Duly noted. We will make that change. This said major land divisions abutting a state highway need to comply with, Trans 233. All land divisions do, so just some cleanup language there. CSMs do as well, which are considered minor land divisions. So let's just call it all land divisions. Line 871 is just being a little more clean, I guess, or clear. Major subdivision, let's just call it any state or county plat. Navigable water. So again, just some basic cleanup. Lots and outlots. So here's another kind of substantive change in my mind. Right now, under our current ordinance, you cannot bisect a newly created lot or outlot with a public road or a proposed private road or access easement. So let's look at some documents. This is a certified survey map that came before the committee, you might remember, 2024, I believe it was. So they were creating a new lot here, bounded on the south by a town road and on property lines by the other side, but they owned the adjoining 40 to the north of here. And they had a farm road that was going in here. So they wanted to break the farmstead off, but retain and sell that, I think, to one of their kids. But mom and dad wanted to retain the 40 up here for farming. They needed a way to get to it, right? So they ran an easement, which by the way, wasn't 66 feet. And the committee grant, if you remember, granted a substandard width easement. There were two variance requests involved here. So we're hitting on both of these, a substandard width easement, and then also bisecting a newly created lot with that access easement. Certainly if that was a town, this lot here cannot cross this town road. I think everybody understands that. It's a public road, but this is an access easement, or in some cases it could be a private road. I guess looking at it, and we've talked about this as a committee, we've had other variance requests. Here's the other one. I brought both of them here, but this one was in the town of Elk Mound. You probably remember this one as well, of Larson, trying to create, one lot around the house, and they just wanted to keep the balance, but the existing driveway went in, so they're effectively severing lot two, and that was approved by the committee as well. So looking at these examples, is there any harm, I guess, in severing a lot with an access easement? If it reduces some variance requests coming before the committee. And again, the committee has granted these in the past. So I'm looking at that as, hey, that's kind of an indication of perhaps policy, right? So why don't we change the ordinance to allow for this? So I guess this is maybe a good place to stop and have a conversation if we need to. On exactly what this is. So what this is saying is you can't cross a public road with a lot or an outlot, but if you want to run an easement through it, not a problem. So any questions on that?
seems reasonable.
Okay. So this is just some cleanup again, lot standards. Nothing too noteworthy there. This is another thing, the 4:1 depth to width ratio. This lot right here does not meet it. It exceeds it, and the committee granted we'll call it a variance, allowing this to be created. It's got some frontage here, but at the driveway, they wanted to own their driveway and then flare this back out into a lot around the buildings. It exceeds the 4:1 depth to width. there are extreme cases, right, where somebody owns 40 acres and they want to make a 50-foot wide strip by 1,320 feet long and put a house somewhere on it. Well, that's not good planning or practice. At the end of the day, do we really want to regulate or apply this 4-to-1 depth to width ratio? It's creating some problems, namely with flag lots and people wanting to own their driveway versus having an access easement. This could have went away if they just created this lot way back along the road and dashed these lines in and said proposed access easement. They wouldn't have even had to come before the committee. But now they're not owning their driveway. I own it because I own the land around it and I'm paying taxes under that. And why not allow them to own their driveway? So we're proposing to remove this 4-to-1 depth to width ratio. We could end up with some very long skinny parcels that don't involve driveways, but I guess if people want to do that, should they be prohibited from doing that?
What's the argument for that? For the keeping the,
Keeping the 4-to-1, I think, I mean, in my mind, well, I guess in my mind, it was
Yeah.
more for the 50-foot strips that go back across the entire 40. And now, well, let's just say it's a 100-foot strip and somebody puts a house out near the road and a pole shed. And now you can't physically get a vehicle around the building to get to the rest of your property. And what if you have a little cabin back there and it starts on fire? Now the fire department can't get back there. Or to me, it just kind of like provides an opportunity for you to sever some of your property based on what you do out front. I don't know, other than the fact it's a long skinny strip and it just doesn't look
Right.
pleasing,
yeah.
but, I don't know.
Okay.
I guess if we're gonna leave the 4-to-1 in, then we need to talk about flag lots and I have some verbiage on that. If
So
we,
this, by removing that, we eliminate this kind of situation here. They'd
if
be
we,
able to
they could do
establish
this,
their lot so they could put their driveway there.
yep, this would not have had to come before the committee. Going forward, they wouldn't need a modification of provisions. They would be allowed to do this. Long as they have 33 feet of frontage and meet the minimum lot size.
I don't see any public, whether there's anything that damages the public interest by allowing that long, if that's what they want. As long as there's adequate width to have a road on there if they need it. Okay, you win.
May I ask a question real quick? When you say flag lots, we're referring to something like this, where it kind of looks like a flag on a flagpole, skinny part, and then it broadens out. That's just what that means.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. This isn't, I mean, it's somewhat of an example, but yeah, just picture a 50-foot strip going back and then into the postage stamp back here, right? That would be the flag, the pole portion of the flag.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Thanks.
Okay. So we're getting rid of that. Um, just some verbiage cleanup here. We're, soil borings and perk tests. We're just condensing all that into a complete soil evaluation report. So, just some verbiage cleanup here. It all has to do with soil borings or soil reports. We're gonna need a separate scaled map showing where those borings are taken and then a cross reference to the actual form. Lots and outlots right now need 33 feet of frontage in our current ordinance. We're gonna do away with that. So only lots need 33 feet of frontage. Outlots, there's plenty of examples where an outlot wouldn't need access on the road or even require an easement. And I don't want to beat this to death, but I want to go back to this example because this just really drives the point home in my mind, and then I will stop. But back to this outlot right here. So town of Elk Mound, somebody had this piece of land, it went out in the field, they decided to reconfigure it and then say, you know what, let's deed this farm field back over to the neighbor here to clean up his field. So they created this outlot. If we're gonna require all outlots to have either direct frontage on a road or access by easement. So now this landowner is gonna have to provide an easement over his own field to get to this outlot that he may quit paying taxes on someday that we don't even know is going to happen. It just seems, it doesn't seem like good government to me. I get it. We don't want to end up with this piece, but the likelihood that this guy who is being deeded this and now is planting corn there is going to quit paying taxes on it, I think is pretty low. If it happens, it happens. Corp Council will have to deal with it. They put it up for bids, and I would like to think the guy next door would bid on that, and he might get it for $10. I don't know, but I guess we deal with these situations when we do. It just seems pointless for John Smith here to create an access easement to this little parcel. For what reason? He doesn't need an access easement. So I'm done talking about outlots. Only lots are gonna need 33 feet of frontage, okay? Here's the non-conforming structure. Remember, we removed the definition. This is where it shows up. This is where it lives in the ordinance, line 11 here. So this is going to be gone. If you're going to run a line too close to your house, zoning is going to catch it if you're in a zone township, and they're not going to approve the map. But if you're an unzoned town and there's no provisions in that town as far as setbacks, then you could, in theory, run a lot line 2 feet from your house. Okay? How's everybody doing? Do we need a break?
Let's plow through.
Okay, we don't have much left here. Okay. Back to our definitions, we're talking about ag-related structures. This is where it shows up now. We're proposing line 13. Any newly created lots that contain existing ag-related structure shall be subject to the standards within NR 151 of Wisconsin Administrative Code. A note may be required to be placed on the face of the CSM or plat as provided by the department. So a good example is we have a lot of farm type buildings out in the country that are no longer being used. There may be a barn and a freestall barn and 4 silos, 6 corn cribs, and a manure pit that haven't been used for 15 years. They're part of an 80-acre tract of land. That farmer now has been approached by a cash cropper, wants to buy the land, but they don't want those buildings. So they're going to carve off 2 acres around the buildings, right? Which is very small, just enough to include the buildings. They're going to sell the remaining 78 acres to a cash cropper, and now they're going to list that 2 acres as a hobby farm. And I buy that hobby farm, and now I want to put 100 steers in there and start raising beef cattle because I have these beautiful barns, but I have no place to pasture these animals. I don't know anything about runoff rules, and this will allow staff to require a note on that map at our choosing, identifying this so somebody knows, hey, this is subject to, I don't know exactly what that note is going to read right now, but I assure you there will be a disclaimer on that map that we're going to work with the zoning office on, putting everybody on notice that there are certain restrictions and compliance standards that will have to be adhered to for any future owners of this property. Does that make sense? Okay. Modification of provisions. So this whole section is being struck and readopted. I'll be honest, the language that we're going to readopt or we're proposing to readopt is very similar, but there's a few minor tweaks. So hopefully you've all had a chance to read this. And this is maybe a time to reopen or revisit Monica or Supervisor Barrier's questions or concerns. So I'll just kind of go through. I'm not going to read it all, but basically if you want to modify any provision of this chapter, you can come before the committee. But you have to prove some type of a hardship or difficulty because of certain features of the land. And then the committee can approve those modifications to the extent that it deems just and proper. There will be an application, there will be a fee, and we'll get into that here at the end. And then once that modification is granted, it attaches to the property as a permanent right for that owner and all subsequent owners. So the language is very similar to variances, but they will not need to go through Board of Adjustment or any of that. But there are conditions in here. So let me just make sure. Yeah. So you can't modify or waive any other county ordinance, which I think is self-explanatory. So I'm going to stop with that and open it up for some questions.
Monica,
This is a question for Corporation Counsel. It's the same question that I had before. I just figured out how to phrase it better. Okay. So a few months ago, you came before the committee with a very nice presentation on Wisconsin law related to variances and gave us some case law and things like that to help us interpret it more accurately. So now we're renaming variances to what modification of provisions. With that renaming, does all that other stuff about variances still apply?
I'm gonna give you my off the cuff answer to
Okay.
that based on, that was about a year ago, actually. It would not apply to the modification of variances. It would be more applicable to the Board of Adjustment and the decisions they make.
Okay,
It was part of the reason why this came up, and actually came up before I was here. I believe that this initial research came from Nick, is titling it variances. It's kind of a gray area in terms of whether this committee should be hearing those requests or whether it should be the Board of Adjustment. This is an attempt to carve it out to more clearly define who looks at what.
okay. That makes sense. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion on this section?
Tom, whenever you come before us with recommendations, so these are pretty much the things you always go through. It's the same.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Moving on, and we're just about at the end. Actually, we are at the end. The only other thing would be the fee schedule has to be modified, slightly. So just remove the reference to variance and then, yeah, those two changes, fee would stay the same.
okay. So your plan would be to go back and sort of peruse the items we discussed and come back to us.
My plan, if it's okay with the committee, is to make these changes and come up with some options for some of these other, some verbiage changes. Come back at our next meeting in 2 weeks. And then I guess get the go ahead to conduct or hold a public hearing in April. So whether that be at the first meeting in April or second, I guess it probably makes no difference which meeting as long as we hold it in April. We'll see what we have going on with other agenda items. Yes, so that would be the plan. It'll require a class 2 notice. So, but short term, yes, we'll bring it back at the next meeting, PR&D, get everything buttoned up, schedule a public hearing, and then on to county board for 2 readings. First reading in May, second reading in June, which will be under the new county board makeup.
And I'm gonna recommend to Tom here, unless you all tell him not to do this, is for our next meeting to highlight only the changes from this version, to apply the changes that everybody seems okay with, but just highlight those just for efficiency's sake.
Sure.
For the county board, everything will be shown.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Everybody okay? Let's go.
Okay, thank you.
One quick, great job. One quick comment. So now will you start making a list again of changes for another year?
Perhaps, yeah. Yeah, there are more things we would like to change, but just in the interest of time, everybody's so busy right now and, these are things that will make things much easier going forward and things that we feel are manageable at this point. But there are some other things we certainly would like to address going forward if and when time permits.
Mike, we really love to spend more time on this as we have.
Okay. Again, yeah, thanks for all the work. So let's see, 8A, items placed at the request of the chair. Comprehensive plan review, structure, related goals, objectives, policies, and strategies. So this came up sort of an informal discussion after our last meeting. And 2 meetings back, we had not everyone was here. Supervisor Kinnear was not able to attend, and Supervisor Morehouse was remote. And after Tammy had previewed some of the suggestions for the format changes we had asked for, it was suggested that it would be helpful to move things along if we had a smaller committee of the committee to meet with her as needed to review changes she was making and maybe facilitate our discussion. And at the meeting, I asked for volunteers. And we had Diane and Monica volunteer. And I believe I appointed them based on that. But it's clear that that Mike was not here. And maybe I moved the discussion ahead a little too fast. So it's been argued that it might be useful to review that decision based on wanting to have as much fairness and balance in the review process as possible. So there's the question of, so I wanted it seemed like there was enough sort of concern about it that it was worth reopening the topic. And I'm not exactly sure how I want to do that, but I'm wondering if anyone on the committee has any thoughts they want to share or concerns.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Sort of 2 points to make. Maybe having a subcommittee or assistance for Tammy is not necessary. So that would be point number 1. And point number 2 is I'm happy to step aside, given Supervisor Kinnear's concerns.
Well, let's talk about the first one first, because that would take care of the problem. I mean, Tammy, you're free to, the committee could have an understanding that you are free to bring in committee members to advise you as you think they would be well, like if you think you need to make sure you have maybe a more diverse opinion, you could include other committee members without the committee needing to, as long as that's okay with the committee. Anyone have any problem with that? So this is all going to come back to the committee. And the only purpose is to give you a sounding board as you need it. So if that's okay with everybody,
Yeah.
then let's do it that way. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. I think we're down to 9. Approval of the ENS 2731 capital improvement plan request. Who's gonna sacrifice themselves?
Take this one. I guess this has been in the KIP now for a couple of years, but this will just be a continuation, have a placeholder for a fleet vehicle. This is an outright purchase of a vehicle versus the lease agreement, and I think that kind of goes back and forth on what's better, but I feel like having the county budget for an actual purchase of a vehicle
And the
is wise.
decision about how to secure those funds can be
Correct.
made later.
Yep, so this is just a continuation of that item.
Any comments or questions from the committee about this? Gary?
Are we talking like one vehicle for you and one for,
One vehicle.
It's one vehicle for the entire ENS department.
So you share vehicles now, you pool?
Correct, yep.
but then Tom wanted one too, right?
Well, we just say it's for, ENS department, we're leaving Tom out of it. I'm just kidding.
So
You can't drive that.
we do share vehicles, but I guess ours is a little more specialized. We have so much equipment in the back, and for us to take all that out every night with the thought that maybe Chase's staff will need to use it tomorrow. So it is an ENS vehicle, but it's really designated for the surveyor's office. Obviously, in days we're not using it, anybody can grab it, but it's a dedicated survey vehicle just because we have so much gear in there. But we are looking, we do have some aging vehicles and, just so we're keeping them in the rotation. Don't end up with a vehicle that's 25 years old and rusting away or needing a lot of repairs.
What we're looking for is like two different vehicles, like one for like, you guys, and then one for Tom, which is a little more specialized.
This request at
Okay.
this time is for only one. I guess Tom could speak to I guess we haven't decided what vehicle would require replacement. It likely would not include Tom's, or the surveying division already has a newer truck.
Right.
However, something happened and that became the priority. I think as a department, we
Could
would
make-
decide
you
that.
could adjust the discussion. And it's
Yeah.
the internal strategic discussion you guys would have to,
Correct.
which is the best way to do it, I think.
So yeah, this is just a placeholder for a vehicle
So,
to
yeah.
be
Okay, is that clear
determined.
here?
Okay.
Just-
Yeah, I mean, I must have like misunderstood, but I thought there was one for you and then one for surveying. But that's not the case. It's just one altogether.
Altogether, yeah.
Okay.
It's,
There is a surveyed
we
vehicle.
we do, yeah.
Right now, we're asking for a designation of one vehicle that could.
It could be assigned, yeah, I would say it's a vehicle for the ENS department that might be more assigned to the survey division, land conservation division, or or zoning division. So who it's assigned to is to be determined.
How many
Right.
vehicles does the ENS have?
We have 6,
Thank you. So this is just part of the rotation.
correct?
Okay.
We have a motion to approve the request.
I'll happily move approval on this one.
Is there a second? Monica? Motion's been made and seconded to approve the request for $60,000 for a vehicle for the ENS department in the capital expenditure plan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay. There's one more request, right?
Yes, and I will handle this one. So this is a capital improvement request that's been in the rotation for a few years now.
Mhm.
It's for our replacement of our GPS equipment. So we're looking at a 10-year cycle on that equipment. So it would be a replacement purchase. And it's basically, it'll near the end of its useful life. Technology changes. There's only so much upgrading that can be done. And just to stay current with everything, and not need, repairs and things like that. So, and just coincidentally, the cost is the same as the truck. It's a little bit hard to, we're looking at a 2030 replacement, so it's still 4 years out, but we're anticipating it would be around $60,000 for that equipment.
So your current equipment is 2020?
Yes,
So it'd be 10 years by the time you
Mhm.
replaced it.
correct.
Any
Yep.
questions?
This is absolutely necessary and more than reasonable, so I think we should go forward.
Yeah, 10 years is,
Yeah,
in electronics terms, is a lifetime, so. Any other questions? Motion to approve?
I'll move approval.
Ross? Suppose George seconds. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Both say no. Both requests are approved. Yeah, good.
On the vehicle, we're talking 60,000, but what happens if it comes in at 45,000? Where does the extra money go? Because you're asking for 60, but it might not cost that much.
My understanding, it doesn't get utilized and
Right, right.
stays in
Stays in the general fund.
Yeah,
Okay.
Um,
So at the appropriate time, this will be put into the into the capital budget that the county agrees on. Debated and, okay,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
is this I mean, I've not seen these documents before. Is this a new way of doing this, or
These documents have been used at least for a couple of years. Cause I have them, I have a folder, I can open it here, but I've been
Mm.
saving these, CIP requests in my, I can show you how far back we've been using them.
no,
Just
no,
give
no,
me,
that's fine. I was just, I hadn't seen this before and wondering if we're in another new system. Is what I was really wondering.
um,
You're wondering about your recall memory, Diane.
Well, there could be that too.
So,
yeah, we started using them and I have documents going back to 2021 using this form, it
yeah,
looks
it
like.
won't seem to be there.
Yeah. Maybe we've just handled it differently in the committee.
Maybe.
My only, it doesn't matter what kind of document it is. I was just wondering if we were using a new system for CIP. Like everything else.
Okay,
Well,
any other questions? So our next meeting is March 18th, and we'll review the version of the land division ordinance. Tammy, where are we at with the plan?
Good question. We will be scheduling the land use focus group meeting and the last agriculture focus group meeting. Now, based on direction from the committee on the gaps, the revised structure, we'll get that all those updated. So the committee will be hearing from us soon. Susan has been really plugging along on developing or compiling everything. The comp plan is looking really nice. The document is, so the committee will definitely be seeing stuff soon here related to that and another update. So as soon as we get those scheduled, those next two focus group meetings, I will let the committee know.
Yeah, I see where Chippewa County has now begun reviewing their draft, so she's completed her work there. So,
Yes, yep. So yeah,
Yep.
they've been able to focus on that and equally been, working on our project too. It's deciding the future land use and designation, as we saw, earlier in this discussion, that will be coming to the committee for a great deal of review coming up here soon.
okay. Anything else anyone has? Any agenda items anyone wants to suggest? If you do, could suggest them between now and next week, I guess. Okay, then we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Yeah,
Really.
as always, well prepared. Thank you.